Hey guys, welcome to this new episode of the Arancemendi podcast. On a seemingly ordinary day, the escalating tension surrounding the controversial deployment of the National Guard to Washington D.C. under the Trump administration exploded into a shocking tragedy. Probably you are aware of this. This is already all over the news, all over social media. Right now, two members of the West Virginia National Guard deployed to the Capitol amidst a federal declaration of a crime, emergency, as Trump has, said that there is a crime emergency in D.C. These two service members were ambushed in an unprovoked shooting near the White House. This attack, which, left both guardsmen, like both of them right now, are in critical condition, has intensified the debate of, over the legality of and even the necessity of the presence of these service, members from the National Guard, which, by coincidence, a federal judge had recently, if I'm not mistaken, was just a couple of days ago, last week, had ruled that it was likely unlawful. So I'm not sure if you're following the news or not, but this is definitely tragic. And one thing that I want to point out right away. Let me actually go to CNN so we can see here online. Look at this. Two National Guardsmen in critical condition and victims of targeted shooting in D.C. Mayor says they literally just identified the shooter. It happens to be an Afghan refugee. And Kristi Noem didn't waste any time to point out that this refugee actually came into the country under the Biden administration, per a post that she shared on social media. But let's look at some of the details quickly here. What we know so far, the two West Virginia National Guardsmen who were shot near the White House are in critical condition. Officials said today Washington, D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser described the attack as a targeted shooting. President Donald Trump tonight condemned the shooting as a, heinous assault and an act of evil, an act of hatred, and an act of terror. So the president is, considering this a terrorist act, pretty much, he says. The president said that U.S. authorities believe the shooter is from Afghanistan and it came to the United States in 2021. Meanwhile, the Trump administration asked a federal appeals court for an emergency stay of an order from a federal judge to remove the National Guard from Washington, D.C. Last week, the judge ruled the deployment was unlawful. And this, to me, honestly brings up a very, very important point that we should discuss, here. The deployment to Washington, to Portland, Chicago, and, some other places. This has been unprecedented, months-long, mission aimed at assisting local law enforcement. But critics obviously are stating clearly that, including D.C., residents and officials, have long decried, this situation as completely unwelcome and an illegal occupation of the city. So, in this case, I want to invite you guys to join me in just analyzing this situation to see, if you think you see this the same way. Right now, this incident is actually turning two service members, who should never have been in harm's way into the tragic casualties of a political, struggle. But that's what's happening right now. The National Guard deployments ordered by the Trump administration were met with a near unanimous legal and political rebellion across the country. So, think of the pattern. To me, this is a clear pattern. Federal judges, state governors, local attorneys, even local attorneys, attorney generals, have repeatedly ruled the administration actions were unlawful and unjustified. The core argument is that the president, Donald Trump, was exceeding constitutional and statutory authority, essentially trying to use military troops for domestic policing and stomping on the power of state governors. And this is obviously one of the points of tension here. We have some key rulings when it comes to the judges and the courts. What's been going on? In Portland, in Oregon, a federal judge Judge Immergut, a Trump appointee, by the way, issued a permanent injunction. She ruled that the president did not have a lawful basis to federalize the National Guard. The judge found that the protests were predominantly peaceful and that the deployment was simply, untethered to the facts. There's a total disconnect between what Trump's lawyers, DOJ lawyers, are arguing in court. It's supposedly it's like kind of like a war zone, right? And then judges are like, where's this happening? Like, we're seeing the videos, we see the pictures, we have witnesses, and there's no such like rebellion or chaos as you guys are stating here in court. Governor Kate Brown and the Attorney General flatly rejected the deployment, stating that Portland is not the president's war zone, fantasy. Our city is not, ravaged, and there is no rebellion. In California, Governor Gavin Newsom and Attorney General Rob Bonta fought back too, like in court. One federal order blocked the deployment of California National Guard troops to Oregon, ruling an unlawful attempt to circumvent, the Portland ruling. Because this is one thing Trump tried to do. Since he had been able to federalize the National Guard in California, once Portland told him you can't do it, he tried to go to California and say, hey, let's use you guys because I'm able to use you guys, so let me send you to Portland right now. And then the court stopped that too. The court called the move well outside the norms, and Newsom himself stated, no president is a king, and no president can, trample a state's power to protect its people. In Washington, D.C., the Attorney General sued, and a federal judge ruled the months-long deployment, was unlawful. Washington, where this tragedy just, struck. The judge said last week that this was unlawful. He found that the administration exceeded its statutory authority by trying to use the military for non-military crime deterrence missions without any request from civil authorities. The Attorney General warned normalizing the use of military troops for domestic law enforcement sets a dangerous precedent. Finally, in Chicago, Illinois, a federal judge indefinitely blocked the deployment, finding that the Trump administration claims about critical conditions were not even credible. I remember that in Chicago, particularly, one of the judges going over this case, one of the judges told the DOJ's lawyers, Trump's lawyers, the administration's lawyer. I remember the judge asked something. It was something along the lines of, "Do you guys realize that I live here? Do you guys realize that I live here in Chicago? That I know, I can see every single day that there's no such rebellion, there's no such, chaos on the streets, right? You're coming here to my court to claim that things are just crazy and that you need to federalize the National Guard, to deploy the National Guard, because the situation is out of control. Local authorities can't get this under control, but I live here." It's not credible. Even Governor J.B. Pritzker warned of the militarization of our American cities. So in nearly every legal challenge, the courts directly, every single court, refuted the administration's justification for invoking military law. That justification is reserved for insurrection, rebellion, or a total loss of control. Those are the three, things that, either one of them or two or all of them must be happening. So we don't have a rebellion in any of these cities. There's no rebellion in California, Portland, Chicago, or any other. There's no insurrection, and there's no loss of control. It's not like local authorities can't handle the situation of a couple of protesters in front of an ICE, facility. So any of those requirements have to be met, either one or multiple, and it's maybe D, none of the above. That's the option. It's option D, none of the above right now. So judges, including those appointed by the president himself, repeatedly found there was no rebellion, there was no invasion, and the claims that cities were war ravaged or under siege were contradicted by evidence presented in court. So the courts affirmed that the core constitutional principle is that, this is a nation of a constitutional law, not martial law. The tragedy of the 2 injured guardsmen, we discuss, is terrible. It's a physical manifestation of this dangerous, politically motivated deployment that has been consistently ruled illegal by, the third co-equal branch of government. There's no question to that. Almost every single court, actually every court, has ruled that this has been a completely politically motivated deployment that has been illegal. There's no question about that. So when it comes now to the reactions of what's going on, one thing that I was thinking is that anytime there's a tragedy, if you guys remember when Donald Trump was attacked, they tried to supposedly assassinate him, which a lot of people still question. There's so many weird things that happened when he was supposedly shot. His ear was shot or something, and then the other guy in Florida when he was playing golf. There's a lot of questions around those attacks. But anyway, the reality is that immediately Republicans come out and start blaming Democrats, right? Oh, this is the Democrats. This is the rhetoric. They're always blaming Trump and calling him a Nazi and calling him a traitor and this and that. And they immediately link all, every and any and all incident of violence. They always link it to the Democrats. When this girl, what was her name? Riley, Laken Riley. They even came up with a law, the Laken Riley Act, which was tragic. She was definitely killed, and that was absolutely tragic and unacceptable. She was killed by an illegal migrant, right, an undocumented migrant. Because of that, immediately they started blaming Democrats. Oh, Democrats want to, they want to open the borders. This is their fault, and they turn a tragic death 100% political. Even their parents that were kind of like supportive of Donald Trump, and they were even invited to some rally at some point. I don't remember if it was the mom or the dad, but one of them said something about how they thought that was being politicized completely, and that was inappropriate, right? So all I'm saying is that Republicans, as soon as they get a chance to blame Democrats for all tragedies, they will do so. Any tragedy, Laken Riley, the Democrats' fault right away. We're not going to talk about gun control. We're not going to talk about the fact that Donald Trump didn't want Biden to sign the border bill. He stopped it. If not, we would have had actually a closed border 10 months before the 2024 election. But Donald Trump killed the border bill, which was originated by a Republican named James Lankford. James Lankford originated that bill in a bipartisan manner with Sinema and I don't remember who else. A couple more people, but it was a bipartisan bill. It was very strong, covering, new equipment to detect drugs and having additional officials for the Border Patrol and having additional funds to also hire more judges so that they can accelerate all these, hearings that are pending right now. Any person who will ask for refuge or asylum has to wait like 4 or 5 years. Even right now, they're giving people appointments for after Trump leaves office. People are going to have to wait, even if they're getting granted, asylum granted at all or a hearing. It's like 4 years out or so, which is ridiculous. So they were saying we need to tackle this in a kind of very just with all this, the focus that we can on all the things that are affecting it, right? It can't just be one thing. We need to deal with the drug side of it and technology, and then we need to have more officials, of course, so we can have more people working with the Border Patrol, but then the courts have to also be strengthened. And that's why it was a mistake, because then Donald Trump didn't want that bill to be signed. He was so concerned about the open borders that he killed the bill. He literally ordered Republicans not to sign the bill and not to even bring it for a vote. And it never happened. Unfortunately, Biden was saying, bring it to my desk. I'm going to sign it. I will sign it. And I'm pretty sure he would have. He would have signed it. So you have to question at some point, if we have any undocumented person from that point on, that came in and committed a crime, whose fault is that going to be? Are you going to keep blaming Democrats when it was Donald Trump who decided to kill the border bill? And then after that, they just signed the Laken Riley bill. But that Laken Riley bill is not even close to as robust, addressing the whole real essence of the problem of the border, immigration, like the James Lankford bill, the border bill, would have done. And, they have full control of government right now. They have the Senate, they have the House, they have the executive. Why have they not passed a border bill right now? Because they don't care. The border is only useful during elections so that they can blame the Democrats about open borders. They don't want to fix the immigration problem. And yes, what they're doing right now is more related to racism, but notice how they're using ICE and executive orders and all these law violations and denying due process, because this is more dramatic, right? They want to sell an image, but they don't want to fix the problem. The problem's still there. If you don't come up with a comprehensive border bill, you're still going to have the same problem unless you change the laws. We still, allow people to come and request asylum. We still allow them to request to become, a refugee. They can become a refugee. And we still have, according to the law, we're supposed to allow them to have a hearing to check if that they actually qualify or not. So that hasn't changed. And then we haven't done that much for the border. Yes, we have certain actions happening, but all I'm saying is go and check the original bill from James Lankford, the border bill. Compare that to the Lake and Riley bill, to whatever Donald Trump is doing right now. It's falling short by a lot. But then going back to the actual National Guard situation, one thing I was thinking is how they always blame Democrats right away. But right now, this tragedy strikes. This is the direct result of Donald Trump federalizing the National Guard against, the sovereignty of the states. And this is a party of, the states' independence, and states are sovereign. We can't violate that, right? But Donald Trump is doing just that, especially in those battleground states where he needs to do so, or maybe in blue states where he wants to create a situation that makes governors look bad, or just to distract, or maybe just to get them used to having the National Guard there, so that when he is ready to try to ask for the machines, the voting machines to be taken, maybe people are going to be used to it, or maybe he's going to have some legal permission to actually have the National Guard out there, or who knows, even the Marines or what. And people are going to be used to it by then, by the time, elections come around, 2026 or 2028. That's the long-term, goal. But right now, I went to the Gavin Newsom's page, and I went to Pete Buttigieg, page, and most of Democrats' leaders right now, they have, thoughts and prayers, and, they're condemning the violence, which is great. But I haven't read a single post from any Democrat making Donald Trump responsible, holding Donald Trump responsible for having these guardsmen out there in D.C., even when a judge told them last week, this is unlawful. You have to, take these people out of here. Even when every single court has ruled that the deployment is illegal, Donald Trump keeps pushing and moving forward, having these people in areas they shouldn't be, dealing with things they shouldn't be dealing with, for which they're not trained to deal with. They're not local police. They don't know the local areas as, local police force, do. Local police force may have, different kind of a knowledge and savvy. They're savvy in a different way, because this is what they're trained to do, to patrol the streets and manage crime, on the streets. These people should have been at home or maybe somewhere else, but not here for political purposes and political means. And I was just wondering and asking myself, when are Democrats are gonna, start, playing at the same level, playing by the same rules? Republicans would have already grilled every single Democratic leader, every Democrat leader. Why? Because they would have tried to link this tragedy immediately to the Democratic Party. But I'm not seeing that right now by the Democrats linking this to Donald Trump, because he is the author of this whole tragedy and situation. Because this was an accident. Tell me if you agree with me or not. This was an accident waiting to happen. This was a tragedy waiting to happen, and I believe there's going to be more of it. Why? Because unfortunately, right now, federalizing our troops or the National Guard is turning them into a symbol of oppression. There's all these cities right now, states and cities, are occupied by military force or the National Guard for no reason. People are fed up. People are mad. They don't like what they're seeing. So everybody has been warning about this. This is a provocation. This is going to lead to more violence, which is probably the whole point. This is maybe what Donald Trump wants. He wants to have more violence so that he can have an excuse to eventually at some point declare, like martial law or the Insurrection Act, or even claim that the situation is out of control. Even though this happened in Washington, Donald Trump has been saying for the past, 3 weeks, 4 weeks or more since he brought the National Guard in, he has been saying that Washington, D.C. is the safest city, like anywhere in the world right now. Have you guys heard him? He has been saying Washington, D.C. is now the safest it's ever been. There's like we have lower crime immensely. Everything is under control. Well, apparently it was. But like I said, go and check yourself on social media. Try to find any Democrat right now pointing to the fact that this tragedy was an accident waiting to happen. This was just a ticking time bomb, and it finally went off, and it's Donald Trump's fault. It's the Republicans' fault because they want to turn this whole situation with the National Guard, they're political pawns. They're using these men and women that are literally serving our country and putting their life on the lines for when it really matters, not for political, stunts. And unfortunately, Donald Trump is putting them in the line of fire for a political stunt, for political gain. That's my take on it. I really, feel bad for these families. My heart goes out, thoughts and prayers for them. I hope they recover. Both of them were in critical condition a couple of hours ago, an hour ago, 2 hours ago. Even at some point there was a mistake. One of the, I don't know if it was in D.C., the governor or what. One of the governors said that apparently service members had died, and then he had to take it back. So, that was obviously very unfortunate. But I hope they can make it. I hope they can be saved and they can go back safely to their families, because this shouldn't have happened. These people shouldn't have been here. It's been illegal. It's political. There's no need for it. So putting these people at risk in the line of fire for nothing, like in areas where they are at risk, just representing something that, the states and the cities and the communities don't want. They don't want occupation. Is turning them against the American people. It's totally unfortunate. So anyway, I'm going to wrap it up there. Please leave a comment. This is the Around 70 podcast. If you like the content, please like and subscribe, share the video, leave a comment so I can, get to know how you feel about this situation, if you agree with me or not, or if somehow if you support Trump and deploying and federalizing the National Guard, and you think this was just kind of like an unfortunate random event that has nothing to do with what I'm saying. It's up to you. Let me know how you feel about that. If you speak Spanish, please visit Brian Tyler Cohen Espanol. I've been helping Brian for the past 2.5, almost 3 years now, actually. And we're putting out a lot of great content. He's doing a lot of great content on his English channel, and we're translating that to Spanish. Great resources. So please go and find this channel, subscribe, so you can help. You can support the work, and that way we can reach more people, and especially more Hispanic, Spanish-speaking people. And I also host a Spanish channel too. So if you can visit my channel, like you see here at the Aranzamendi Podcast, you can find Aranzamendi Podcast Espanol. I have a bunch of episodes. If you speak Spanish, or if you have any Spanish-speaking family or friends, co-workers, you can send them to my channel too. So we'll see what happens, guys. Stay tuned. Go online, check what's going on. Like I said, I really hope these people can make it. These two service members, guardsmen. This shouldn't have, happen at all. Shouldn't have happened. And I hope that Donald Trump finally realizes that illegal orders lead to this, these kinds of situations, and this has to stop. So that's it. I'll catch you in the next episode. Take care, and thank you for tuning in.